many followers do you have? How many social media platforms do you use? How often do you check for updates on your apps? How many people do you follow? What are you looking for? What compels you to follow them? We live in the age of Instagram. Millions of people around the world are uploading picture after picture and video after video, broadcasting their life to the world. Today, nearly 2.5 billion people use Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, and other social media platforms. No other time in history has seen this level of instant communication and interaction. Why has social media become so successful? And what are we asked to do when we engage these things? Among other things, social media encourages us to tell our story. Just open up Instagram now, and at the top of your screen, you'll see the phrase, your story. We're encouraged to tell the world our story using images and text. We're asked to communicate what's going on in our lives to a watching world. The call of Christ to go and make disciples in the nations echoes through the centuries, and it's now being heard by the church in the age of Instagram. What does discipleship look like in the 21st century? And how can the church fulfill the call of Christ in this new world? Two recent studies in the United Kingdom suggest that biblical literacy has been decreasing for decades. Christians do not know the Bible as well as they used to. According to one study, there are three problem areas for the church. First, some Christians have knowledge that is far less reflective of their abilities than it should be. And second, more specifically, older Christians show little sign of growth in their knowledge and understanding. They haven't really learned more as they've grown older. And third, new Christians or not yet Christians increasingly know nothing about or very little about the Bible at all. Imagine what "Suffer the little children" appears to suggest to an unchurched teenager. A second study suggests biblical illiteracy is a growing problem. It asks, will millions of people in Britain and around the world believe in the value the Bible stories and what they bring to society when little is being done in our homes and schools to keep them alive for future generations? Both studies conclude that biblical illiteracy in the UK is a problem. These people have grown up in Christian Britain. They've grown up in a society where religious studies is a part of the school's curriculum. They grew up in a society whose laws derive primarily from the moral code written in this book. But for whatever reason, they are largely biblically illiterate. Now, according to these studies, this is a problem. As I'm reading these studies, I'm thinking of my own experience over the past year in small discipleship groups. I co-lead groups with my wife in our local church. One is a youth Bible study, and the other is a Christianity Explored course for new believers and not yet believers. Over the past year, we've led a youth Bible study in our home. We choose a book to look at for the year to explore together, and we have both churched and unchurched young people in our Bible study, which meets weekly. One thing that struck me was the unchurched young people didn't know that the Bible was a collection of books. They didn't know that it was divided into chapters and verses, or that it even told stories. They were in many ways being introduced to the Bible for the first time. We have a number of adults, Christian and non-Christian, journey with us through the Christianity Explored course. In the first session, we provide a Bible for each participant, and we quickly found out that they did not know much, if anything, about the Bible. Like the young people, we had to explain to them how the Bible came to be put together and how to navigate it. They were in many ways being introduced to the Bible for the first time. So I've been thinking about this to myself. Is this a problem? Is this a bad thing, biblical illiteracy? Is it bad that people who grow up in this society are no longer learning about the Bible from a young age? Is it a problem that we had to teach a 40-year-old how to find chapter and verse in the Bible? Should we be frustrated and campaign that the Bible be made more public and visible in our society? Well, maybe. There's nothing wrong with educating society about the Bible. And it's a good thing for Christians in particular, to be able to navigate the Bible for themselves and teach others how to do the same. These are good things, and we need to continue doing them. But there's something about these studies which excites me. Instead of just seeing this as a negative problem, what if the church sees this as an opportunity? We get to tell the stories for the first time again. We get to model good practice in reading and learning. We get to share the story of God to those who, although they've been living in a society shaped by the moral code found in the Bible, they may have never heard the stories themselves. We have an opportunity to be creative in following the command of Christ to go and make disciples. So what does discipleship look like in the 21st century? Let me suggest two responses. First, disciples need to become good storytellers. It's fascinating to me that in the age of Instagram, in many ways, it draws us back to the early church. The ancient way of storytelling is being recast in new forms today. We can no longer assume that people in our society know these stories. We can no longer take it for granted that the average person on the street even knows who Jesus is. The Apostle Peter said it best, always be ready to tell your story and to explain the hope that you have. Disciples in the 21st century must be good storytellers. Stories are compelling, inviting, they're informative, and ultimately, they're transformative. And the second thing, read the Bible and teach others how to read it for themselves. There's an increasing openness to the Bible in the 21st century. The church is being given the opportunity to retell the ancient stories and shape the future of the church by telling believers and non-believers alike, teaching them how to become a part of the greatest story ever told. Access to resources and technology are enabling the church to tell the story of God in new ways and for new contexts. After all, in the age of Instagram, we're all looking for a story to follow and a story to tell.